Is Donald Trump going to end Medicare? He kind of said so yesterday. Watch this clip. It's pretty bad. The White House actually took down the clip when they realized what they'd done.
Because the United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it, too. They should pay. They have to raise their taxes, but they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up. But it's not possible for us to take care of daycare. Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things, they can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing, military protection.
You heard it. Donald Trump said because of the war, we can no longer afford Medicare. Medicaid as well, but Medicare at the federal level. Medicare is the program for health insurance for seniors. There's like 30 or 40 million seniors on Medicare, and Trump wants to get rid of it. Also, I love the part where he says we could just raise taxes. Oh, okay, Grandpa, we're going to raise taxes and get rid of Medicare. Big surprise the White House took this video down. We got an election in November, by the way, folks. This is not good for Republicans. Help me make a difference?
Not a socialist, but everybody deserves a right for health care.
That's socialism.
And, well, and you need...
Wait. But hang on a minute. You're saying I'm not a socialist, but then you're like, I do, though, want socialized health care. That's socialism.
I don't know if that's called socialism.
It is.
Everybody needs to have the right to have a doctor and be taken care of and have an advocate that helps you figure this out, because there are none here. There are none.
Yes.
What I'm going through now with your father, it is like,
yes.
But it shouldn't have taken me to be in this position to know this, but it did.
Okay.
So I'm
and that's
here.
fine. And I think that's a very common thing with most MAGA people. It's hard for you to look outside your immediate life to find empathy for anybody in a situation that you yourself are not personally in.
Right.
You are in that now. You are seeing firsthand that the medical system in America has nothing to do with doctors or patients. It is completely run by insurance companies.
Insurance companies. That is correct.
They make every decision.
That is correct.
So like Dad right now, Bob, for those watching the show, he's in a rehab facility trying to get better, to get back on his feet. And the decision about how long he should stay in this place is not made by the doctor, is not made by the patient. It is made only by the insurance company, who has a bottom line about profits. That's all that matters. That's how the entire American medical system is run right now.
And we will be kicked out of the rehab facility next week sometime.
Yeah.
Sometimes political decisions feel different when they suddenly affect your own life. In this video, we'll look at the reaction of people who once supported cuts to Medicaid, but later found themselves needing the healthcare assistance they had supported reducing. Let's take a look at some of this clip. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. All right, let's get into it.
If you think that you or someone you love may need a hospital someday, you need to watch this. We said that Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act would be fatal for hospitals across the country, and there's a new report out that shows that we were right. You see, Trump's massive giveaways to rich people had to be paid for somehow, and Republicans did it in part by making the largest single cut to Medicaid in the program's 60-year history. $911 billion. Now, Medicaid isn't just a program for low-income people. It accounts for roughly 1/5 of all hospital spending nationwide. When you gut that funding, it's like a giant revenue stream gone for hospitals. They are reeling from it. So a new analysis drawing on financial data from roughly 95% of U.S. hospitals identified 446 hospitals as being at high risk of closure or service cuts. These are hospitals where Medicaid makes up at least 20% of revenue and that were already operating at a loss. They span 44 states and Washington, D.C., and about 60% of them are in urban areas, not just rural ones. But rural communities are getting hit especially hard. Maternity wards are closing. In rural Georgia, St. Mary's Sacred Heart ended maternal health services, citing congressional Medicaid cuts. In Farmville, Virginia, Central Southside Community Hospital closed its labor and delivery unit, referencing federal funding reductions. In Indiana, Greene County General Hospital ended obstetrics services in January. Mothers in those communities are now driving an hour or more for prenatal care. Now, Congress did introduce a so-called rural health fund in Trump's bill, $50 billion over 5 years. It sounds like a lot, but KFF estimates that that fund covers only about 37% of the projected $137 billion loss in rural Medicaid funding over the next decade. This is just the beginning. The deepest cuts in Republicans' bill don't kick in until 2027 and 2028. The CBO projects that by the time this fully plays out, 10 million more Americans will be uninsured. When uninsured patients show up to emergency rooms, which they will because hospitals are legally required to treat them, hospitals absorb those costs. And those costs eventually get passed on to everyone else through higher bills and higher premiums, but they also just hit the hospital hard. Look, this is not partisan. The American Hospital Association called these cuts the largest ever proposed by Congress and said they will irreparably harm the healthcare system and force facility closures, especially in rural and underserved areas. Republicans lied and sold this law as fiscal responsibility. What it actually does is take $1 trillion out of the healthcare system and transfer it to the wealthiest Americans and corporations as a tax cut. Your local hospital may pay the price. You or someone you love may too. Never forget who's responsible. Never forget that accessible, affordable healthcare is a human right.
So the federal government is halting funds to Medicaid in Minnesota. Halting over $250 million worth. And they announced this yesterday, the day after Trump's State of the Union, where he said they wouldn't ever do something like that. Well, it seems like they always ever, like never before. They're saying they're doing this to ensure that the state of Minnesota takes its obligation seriously to be good stewards of the American taxpayers' money and because of fraud. Did you know that when it comes to Medicaid fraud, Minnesota has one of the lowest rates, lower than the national average? And did you know that Minnesota is a donor state, which means its residents and businesses pay more in federal taxes than they receive in federal funding every year? To put that into like a numerical perspective, in 2023, the federal government collected about $119 billion in revenue from Minnesota, while returning roughly $75 billion, which is a difference of $44 billion. That is $7,600 per person. What we in Minnesota pay in federal taxes supplements for the states that don't pay more than they receive, the getter states. All this to say, they are halting and weaponizing Medicaid funding and stealing our fucking money. But let's say, for the sake of the argument, that it is about fraud. We already said that Minnesota has one of the lowest rates of Medicaid fraud, but states like Texas, California, New York, Delaware, their rates are much higher. Why are funds not halted there? Not that I believe they should be, but why? And if it is about fraud, then that means that the federal government's solution for fraud is to cut off medical funding for people who are in low-income families, children, the elderly, people with disabilities, working individuals. Medicaid isn't a fucking political pawn piece. Okay, Medicaid is chemotherapy, insulin, oxygen, chronic condition treatment, neonatal care, nursing homes. For some, Medicaid is survival. So the federal government's solution to fraud is to punish the most vulnerable and the most dependent. That's not justice. That's cruelty. And again, if cutting off federal medical funding is about fraud, then why the fuck is their Lord and Savior Trump sending a hospital ship to Greenland saying that they are not receiving proper medical care? We are not receiving proper medical care in this country. And again, if cutting medical funding is about fraud, then let's talk some more about fraud. Trump transferring $10 billion of American taxpayer money to his Board of Peace. Trump suing the IRS for $10 billion, saying that his tax records shouldn't be disclosed, like he's special. Trump and his administration sending $20 billion to Argentina to prioritize political allyship. And do not forget the billions of dollars sent to AIPAC and Israel because America is their little bitch. This halt of Medicaid funding is nothing more than a retaliation tactic, and it is going to kill a lot of people. I cannot even tell you how closely this affects people I love and care about, but I can sure as fuck tell you that when it does, you will hear my fucking voice. And if they're going to keep terrorizing us in our fucking streets, then why the hell are we paying them and funding them? So if you think people in Minnesota will be paying their federal taxes, good luck. We're sick of the bullshit.
This Trump supporter in Florida is finding out the hard way. Catalina Jaramillo has kidney disease and relies on Affordable Care Act subsidies to afford her insurance and treatment. Republicans are crying about the Affordable Care Act's costs and pushing ideas like health savings accounts that don't help her. And Trump calls the Democrats' focus on affordability a con job and is fully prepared to let the subsidies expire. And Catalina, she's a lifelong Republican and Trump supporter. She says this has her support of the party wavering. Just wavering? Those expanded subsidies expire at the end of the year. Without them, her premium more than doubles and her medication becomes unaffordable. She says she's terrified and feels like a deer in the headlights. She's not alone. 22 million Americans are in the exact same spot. Premiums are expected to go up 114% on average. You voted for the party that spent over a decade trying to repeal the law you now depend on. You voted for a guy who's now going to make your life unaffordable and whose policies will likely cut your life short. But your support for the party is just wavering. It fully is a cult. I hope you enjoy the taste of your flavor aid, Catalina.
So, Donald Trump got on stage last night and said, "We can't afford daycare or Medicaid. We're funding wars." Sir, didn't you run on lowering costs for Americans, no new wars, and finding a better healthcare plan to replace the Affordable Care Act? Oh, and while you mentioned Israel 6 times last night, you left out the part where we pay them billions of dollars in aid every year, and they give their citizens free healthcare and childcare. Meanwhile, you're telling the American people that even though it comes out of our paycheck every month, we can't afford Medicaid for Americans. Oh, and another thing. If we stop federal funding for Medicaid and transfer it to the states, like you were suggesting, the average American taxpayer, you and I, would be paying $3,000 to $5,000 more per year. So just to recap, we can fund wars, we can send billions overseas, yet we can't afford basic needs for Americans at home. Makes sense.
Now they're already on the defensive and they cannot take this blow on Medicaid. And so Trump has been making calls to Republicans in the House saying, we don't know if we can cut Medicaid. And that creates a big problem for them because they have no way of paying for these tax cuts for Elon and all of their donor class without touching Medicaid. They don't know how to do it. They can't figure it out. And so Trump and the White House are starting to crack on this. And that is why I am telling you this. I am not here to give you any BS. When I tell you to make a call, I don't tell you this in circumstances when I don't think it's going to make any difference. This will make a difference. And so we need to be ahead of the ball. This is an opportunity. And this is an opportunity where we can start to mobilize in the next 72-ish hours that can change an outcome.
The Trump administration is doing everything it can to induce riots. That's what I think cutting off Medicaid and food stamps and furloughing government workers is really about. I think it's really about, can we get them mad enough to be violent and then use that as a reason to catalyze our authoritarian rule?
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before we get into today's topic, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. So today we are talking about a harsh political reality. You know, sometimes people support cutting a public program until they suddenly need that program themselves. Some MAGA voters have supported cuts to Medicaid because they believe the program costs too much, encourages government dependence, or should be reduced. But then life happens. A serious illness, a job loss, a family member who need expensive medical care, and suddenly the question becomes, wait, what happened to people like us? This is where the debate becomes very real. Because, it's easy to talk about cutting government program when you believe you will never need them. But healthcare need, can change quickly. Healthcare need can change quickly. A person who feels financially secure today could face a completely different situation tomorrow. And this is why some people are now asking whether they supported cuts without fully understanding how those changes could affect ordinary family, including their own. But let's be fair, not every MAGA voter supported Medicaid cuts, and not every person who supported cuts will eventually need Medicaid. This debate is much more complicated than simply saying one political group is hypocritical. The bigger question is, should people support politics based on their own current situation, or should they consider the possibility that their circumstances could change? Because when it comes to healthcare, nobody knows the future or what the future holds. So what do you think? What do you guys think? Should Medicaid be cut, reformed, or protected? And do people sometimes change their political opinion when a policy begins to affect them personally? I would like you to drop your thoughts in the comments. Please do well to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more honest conversation about politics, society, and the issue affecting our everyday life. Once again, this is Charcomfortii. We don't just watch the conversation, we talk about it. Thanks for watching, and see you all in my next video. Bye. Love ya.